Oh, so you're in Audrey.
We have a little baby boy, God willing.
No.
So we're very excited. He's very cute and little.
Oh, so the C-section happened already.
Yeah, it was right after we got here. We got here Friday morning at 4 a.m. and he was born at Friday 4 p.m. So we got here in time. So it was
Wow.
great. So yes. So it's so nice to see all of you. As I said, it's very funny to be back in the United States, but not in Denver. So I feel, I don't know where I am, but we're here. So it's interesting having everything be in English. So even though we don't know where we are, because this is also new, it's like, okay, the signs are all in English. It's so much easier. So anyway, it's all great. Everything is going really well. So thank God. So I'm looking forward to starting here with you. So let me go ahead. Let's see, the recording is already in progress. We will go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and mute. And then, of course, with any questions or comments, please join in. All right. So we will start with our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. So happy post-Pesach. And happy counting Sfirat HaOmer. We are now in the time period. Oh, I'm just going to say I'm working from my daughter's office. I hope we'll have a good connection. I apologize if I freeze or if there's other things, but we're just going to move forward and hope that all is good. And next week I may be coming from someplace else. Maybe our condo in Florida will be ready for us to go into. Who knows? We're just up in the air. I have to say I feel a little bit like the Jewish people, lahavdil, who were during the 40 years of wandering. They didn't know when the cloud was going to say, okay, get up and pack up and go. That's so strange that we've been basically kind of living out of our suitcases since December. And this is a long time for me to be in flux. So we're doing good. We're doing good. But anyway, okay. So we are like the Jewish people. We are moving from Pesach to Shavuot, to the giving of Torah, which is the entire point of the Exodus from Egypt, was for the Jewish people to come out from service of Pharaoh, to go into service of Hashem, into service of Torah, service of God, and to go into the land of Israel, where the relationship between God, Torah, and the Jewish people can both be most fully be lived. But in the process, as we know in the Torah, the Jewish people don't even get to the land of Israel in the Torah. The Torah ends with on the other side across from my apartment, on the other side of the Jordan, looking that way towards the land of Israel, but not in the land of Israel. So we know it's the journey that is the most important, and nothing says journey more than Sfirat HaOmer, than the counting of the Omer, of the 49-day process, the 7-week process. So there are so many different ways to connect to Sfirat HaOmer, counting of the Omer, each of the Sfirot, the weeks of the themes, each of the days, and you can find all that online on Chabad.org, Meaningful Life. Some of you might have Omer counters, lots of things to do that. So what I'd like to do is talk about more the overall approach and what we are trying to achieve and some guidelines for achieving successfully. So the first thing we want to answer a question, which I never really thought about before, and this class comes primarily from the teachings of Rabbi Zev Leff. So he points out that when Moshe was at Mount Sinai, which was before he went down to Egypt to help with the Jewish people leaving Egypt, he was on Mount Sinai with the burning bush. That's where that all took place. So, which we all kind of forget about that. But I want to point out something that Rav Leff indicates, which is, yes, today is day 13. So yes, from to Gabi, today is day 13. The Sphira combination, we are in the week of Gevura, which is restraint, boundaries, definition. And we are in the 6th day of that Sphira, which is the quality of Yisod, which means to connect, foundation, integrity, all those things are about that. So that's where we are, is in day 13. Okay, so one of the questions is, did the Jewish people know that they were going to be going to Mount Sinai? Like, do they know that that was in the cards for them? So one of the ways that we know that is, first of all, that God told Moshe, you will come back to this mountain. Where do we see that? We talked about that actually a few weeks ago or a month ago or whenever it was, on page 304 in the Chumash, page 304, which is chapter 3, verse 12 of Exodus. So we're going back in time to Exodus, to page 304, when God first talks to Moshe, and he says to him, 304 in English, in English that will be on page 305. And it's the very first sentence or very first line on the page. And it says, when you take the people out of Egypt, you will serve God on this mountain. And the word for serve is ta'avdun, and it ends with a nun. Now, what's interesting is somebody who knows Hebrew would know that you don't need that nun at the end. The plural, you shall all, the ta'avdu, you shall all serve God. The nun is extra. What does the nun teach us? The nun is a hint to the gematria. Nun is the number 50. So in 50, ta'avdu benun, in 50 days. So 50 days from the day of leaving Egypt, you will arrive at this mountain and serve Hashem. And so embedded in the word itself about you're going to come back here is a hint to in 50 days, you're going to be coming. And that the Jewish people needed to know that so that they could be excited. So if you think about it, if somebody's going to experience something very powerful, overwhelming, life-changing, if they don't know that it's going to happen to them, it kind of doesn't allow them to prepare for what that experience is going to mean to them. You need to have some time. 50 days is actually a pretty short time from going from being a slave to becoming the chosen people of God and standing at Mount Sinai and receiving the Torah. I would call that a pretty quick course in how they're going to, yes, the burning bush, we understand, was at Mount Sinai, in the Mount Sinai environs. I don't know exactly where, but in Mount Sinai, because Hashem says exactly, you will serve God on this mountain, al hahar hazeh, which is very specific. It's not just like in this general area, on hahar hazeh, you will come and serve God on this mountain, meaning Mount Sinai. So this was a known place. This was a known end game. And it's interesting that I'm guessing that at no one Seder was this discussed. We don't talk about why we're going. We just talk about the fact that we are going. At the second Seder is when we start the count. That in your Haggadah was the count, and then starting the whole process got started there on the second night of Pesach, of starting this count. It's like, now that we're free, where are we going? What are we doing? And what are we anticipating? So having this in place is what we want to focus on. What did it mean to have these 50 days of anticipation? So the phrase that we're going to focus on today is that the Sfirat HaOmer, which is so different from preparing for Pesach. I don't know about you, but during the weeks leading up to Pesach, if you were in the East Side Kosher Deli, or even if you were at King Soopers, where there are a lot of other Jewish people, or you're just talking to people, how are you? How are your Pesach preparations going? What's happening? Did you find the matzah? Did you find the, kosher Pesach jelly or marinara sauce? Everyone's kind of talking about it, and it's a kind of a communal experience. Then we get to Sfirat HaOmer, which is nobody's talking about it unless you happen to be in our class talking about it, or with a group of people. It's very private and personal. No one says, well, how are you doing with your Sfirat HaOmer? In fact, that would be a really inappropriate question to ask somebody, to say, well, how are you doing with your personal spiritual growth? That would be totally inappropriate. So Sfirat HaOmer is a personal count, personal reflection, and can only be done by the individual. So it's interesting, if you go to someone's house and let's say for Shabbat dinner, and they make Kiddush, or they make hamotzi, you say amen to their blessing. And then once you say amen, you can drink the wine and you can eat the bread and you can do the whole thing. It's called being yotzi. It kind of sounds like hamotzi, but yotzi means that you can be in on their blessing. So one blessing you cannot be in on is Sfirat HaOmer. You cannot be in on anybody else's blessing or on their count. Everyone has to say it for themselves. So it was very sweet for the first number of days that we were counting, and in Israel, of seeing our little grandchildren count, even like, the 5-year-old saying her count, and everyone listened to her count and said amen to her count. But she couldn't count for them and they couldn't count for her. So even if it's like a big rabbi or a big somebody who's really amazing, they cannot count for you. And we can't count for them. So this idea of that this is a personal journey, a personal experience that requires personal reflection, which is why we're not really talking about it. In addition to the fact that most people don't know about it. But even if they did know about it, it wouldn't be something that people would be talking about because it's so personal. And what is the goal? So one of the goals of Sfirat HaOmer is, number one, to have a goal. Having a goal about what we want to achieve during this period of time, broken down into a daily little micro step. So that one of the big keys in spiritual growth or in achieving anything is breaking it down into small pieces. What is it? By the inch, it's a cinch. So that each little step is broken down so that it is doable. The word that really kind of jumped out me today from Rav Leff is that he talked about the word aspiration. So goal, I think, is a little bit too goal-oriented. Aspiration is really what we're talking about. What do we aspire to become? What do we aspire to achieve? And aspiration is a word, because it has the word like to breathe in it, like inspiration. It's empowering and motivating. Somehow when I say I have a goal, I don't know about you, I'm very goal oriented. I really am. I make lists after I've done something so I can make the list and check it off. So I'm very goal oriented. However, goals are a double-edged sword in that goals, as soon as we set a goal, we often find ourselves with some obstacle that's going to keep us from achieving that goal, or too great of a disappointment when we do not reach our goals. So goal is a hard defined place. Aspiration is more airy. It is just more, because it's like when you have it, it's more like about breathing. I'm breathing it in. This is what I want to become. And in fact, one of the words that in Hebrew is the word for aspiration is she'ifah. So for those of you who know the Hebrew, it's shin, aleph, yud, fe, hey. And it has the word af in it. And the word af means nose. So it's like, you go to a yoga class, or you go to anything, and what do people say? Like, breathe in all your hopes and dreams, breathe out the negativity. So breathing in the aspiration to be inspired and to breathe it in. And how often do you have to breathe something? How much do you have to breathe? All the time. Okay. Each breath you can say, I breathed earlier today, so I don't need to breathe right now. Breathing is kind of like in and out, ongoing. It's not something that one decides to. Yes, and the word thank you very much. And Gabi is saying, and the word peh. So it has very, very good. Thank you, Gabi. I did not notice that. It has aleph peh, which is off, and then it also has peh hey, which is mouth. Okay, so that this is both the mouth. Gabi, was that right? Is that the word for nose is off, aleph hey? Okay, aleph hey. So we have both the mouth and the nose, which are the vehicles for breathing. In with your nose, out with your mouth. So what are we breathing in? We're breathing in our aspiration, our inspiration. What is it I'm looking for? And we find that this is a natural human reaction, that before you do something that's going to be really challenging, what do people say? Okay, take a deep breath. What is it that you want to achieve? What is it you're trying to, like, I want to be patient. I want to be present. I want to focus. All of those things. That's different than a goal. A goal is already, I am patient. Okay, my goal is to be patient. Okay, that may go, that may work, or that may not work. But when I breathe in and say, I want to act patient, I aspire to be in a mode of patience. That is a different thing. So we've got the breathing in part of I'm breathing in and my inspiration is my aspiration. What am I breathing out? So the thing that we want to breathe out is our expectations of ourselves, expectations of other people. It says we can have aspirations for other people, but when we cross into the line of expectations, deep disappointment, and there's probably going to be a misalignment between where the other person is and where we want them to be, or where we are and where we would like to be. And to be able to come with a generosity of spirit to ourselves and to other people of, I have aspirations for you. They talk about, parents who have expectations of their children. They're going to be a doctor, they're going to be a lawyer, they're going to be a straight A student, they're going to excel in sports. Those are expectations. I aspire for you. Just even think when you verbalize these words, I know we're all on mute, but just even say the word, my aspirations, feels different in your body than my expectations. Your face will automatically assume a different look when you say those two different words. And it sends a whole cascade of hormones, whatever chemicals through your body when you use these different words. My aspirations for you, because it also then becomes different. My aspirations for myself are that I become a kinder, more patient, loving person. My expectation is that I should be, good in all circumstances and do the right thing. It's like, that's not going to happen. We understand even, this was a beautiful example that Rav Leff pointed out, says, even God has aspirations for us rather than expectations. So how does he give us as an example? It says, when the Jewish people were going to go into the land of Israel, we had a commandment that we were supposed to conquer the 7 Canaanite nations that were there because they were bad people doing bad things. And that we're supposed to kind of get rid of them as soon as possible. However, what God tells us is, you're going to go about this slowly, because if you do it too fast, wild animals are going to come into the places where you get rid of people. We're here in Florida and we're surrounded by all this wildlife that we do not see in Denver, like gigantic lizards crossing the road and snakes and all these unusual things. It's like where there is a vacuum of human beings, even evil human beings, in come wild animals. God's like, better that you go through the conquering process slowly, because the reason you're going to need to do it slowly is you're not going to merit. You will not have the spiritual greatness necessary for a quick conquering, and therefore we're going to have a problem with wild animals. So what I want you to do is to do it slowly so the wild animals don't come. So what does this have to do with this? Like, if God could help us make it work quickly, then why doesn't it? It's like, because we have to be ready for it. He gave a different example. It says, so some people here in this group have been teachers, or if you've been a parent, or if you've been anybody who has worked with other people, you have a plan for how something should go. You're a teacher and you have a lesson plan, and it's the greatest lesson plan ever. And then you walk into your classroom and you find out that the class that you were prepared to teach, that the kids, the adults, or whoever, they're not at the level to deal with your lesson plan. So you can either be insistent and say, well, I have expectations, we're going to do this. Or I can say, that's not the reality that I see in front of my face. I still aspire for you to learn, but it's going to have to take a different approach. Aspiration makes room for different approach. Expectation tends to be a narrowing of approach with ourselves and with other people. So with this idea of the aspiration, this will help us have a healthy approach to our own spiritual growth and therefore to other people, which, since we're so focused on ourselves, I can't really be focusing my attention on what other people are doing. And I mean this in a good way. I don't need to worry about other people's spiritual growth and how they're doing on their journey. I need to worry about how I'm doing on my journey, except to the extent that I can be helpful to somebody else. But without the expectations of other people, I can focus on what my aspirations are for myself. So how do we do that? So we do that through Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer. So interestingly, when do we count, or when is ideal to have the count of Sfirat HaOmer, of what time of day? The ideal is at night, okay? We start our day the night before. In fact, ideally, as soon as, like, as part of the Ma'ariv, as part of the evening service, is when there's Sfirat HaOmer. For sure, before we go to sleep. What is this telling us? It's telling us that before I go to sleep, I'm already putting into my mind what my aspiration is for the coming day. So it's like I'm going to sleep with it in my mind. When we go to sleep with something in our minds, it's as if we have already started. It starts the process of orientation, because whatever we tend to go to sleep with, it tends to percolate and impact our sleep as well. So that when we wake up, we're ready to go. In business practice, they talk about, before you go to sleep, make a list of all the things that you plan to do for the coming day, get out your materials so that you're ready. It creates a head start, it creates momentum for the coming day. You can still make the blessing in the morning if you forgot just that one time. You can still say the blessing for it in the morning, but the ideal is that it needs to be the night when the day really starts, where the Jewish day really starts, is in the night. And to say that, to say, this is what I'm going to sleep with, this as my intention, that I'm going to sleep, and I want my sleep even to be for the purpose of giving me strength and energy to fulfill my aspiration for the coming day, is different than just falling into bed because I'm exhausted, which may also be the case. But it's not just falling into bed because I'm exhausted. I'm going to sleep to gain energy so that I can focus my intention on my aspiration for the coming day. Just saying that, whether you accomplish anything at all or not, the intentionality behind that is already transformative. You do that for 49 days straight, you're going to be in a different spiritual position than you were before you started. Okay, so just even the process itself is designed to facilitate our success. Any questions just on that part of going to sleep with that, of having that in mind at all? Mindy, were you going to say something? No? Okay, all right. Okay. If anybody, yes, Carol. No, okay, I'm sorry, I see a hand there. Oh, okay, sorry. It was me putting my hand on your name. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so this is the way to even go to sleep with the idea that I'm going to sleep, and specifically with one thing in mind. It's not, I'm going to become an amazing person starting tomorrow. It is, I'm going to sleep now with the intention that I'm working on a very specific aspect of the Sfirat HaOmer, the specific aspect of whatever the spiritual quality is that I'm focusing on. Now you can use the Sfirot of today, for example, of day 13, that we're in the quality of definition and of self-discipline and differentiation. We're in that quality, and we're working on having integrity about that. My integrity in my discipline, my integrity in my definition, how I maintain my my self-respect, my honesty, all of that has to be aligned. So this today is about alignment. So how am I aligned? Where are places where I'm like a little kind of out of step, out of touch here with what my aspiration is? You can use that, but you can use anything. You can have any goal that you want to work on that is of a spiritual nature. Now, some people are like, I don't know what my spiritual goals are. Spiritual goals are not exclusively spiritual. So let's say you have a goal that's for your health and your well-being. Maybe it's a goal to go to sleep and get enough sleep. Maybe it's to get enough exercise. Maybe it's to go out and take a walk. Maybe it's about, how you're eating. Any of those things, those are also spiritual goals, because we're spiritual beings and everything we do has a spiritual component. So let's say it's about getting enough sleep. Those of you who have gotten emails from me very late at night know that that's something that, for some reason, I don't know why this eludes me. I'm up too late. I'm up too late, and it's not so smart. So it's actually the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, my impediment is stopping me from getting enough sleep. That there's a part of me that thinks, oh, I'm being very productive and getting all these things done by staying up. And so the Yetzer Hara is like, good, yes, stay up. In fact, stay up a little later, giving me a little burst of energy, stay up a little later, stay up a little later. And what happens the next day? I wake up and I'm not fully rested. And the Yetzer Hara is like, good, you're not rested. If you're not rested, how are you doing the things that you want to do? All the good things. You're going to be cranky. You're going to be dragging. You're going to be schlepping around. The Yetzer Hara is like, I don't have to get her to do anything wrong. I can just get her to have no energy so she doesn't do anything right. So that's the Yetzer Hara, what it has to do with sleep, of something like that that's physical. It can be about eating. What if my Yetzer Hara that wants me to be like snacking away, doing things that are unhealthy is like, great, I'll shorten her life. I'll make her miserable. She won't be able to function in this world so long. So, God forbid, we'll be done with her sooner. I mean, all these things like this, the physical, spiritual is interconnected. So having a physical goal and its spiritual counterpart could be the spiritual counterpart. Again, since we're in the quality of discipline and restraint, is where am I exercising the proper boundaries in everything physical that I have? My sleep, my eating, my exercise, my schmoozing on the phone, my every single thing that involves a physical activity has a spiritual component of, is it in the right balance for the right situation? Am I doing the right thing in the right way, the right time, in the right place? All of that is about the integrity. Is it lined up and is it disciplined? Discipline does not mean rigid. It just means defined, instead of being like, as they say, like a dog that's walking without a leash and sees a squirrel run by, and it can be doing whatever. It's like squirrel, and just goes off, taking off to whatever whim is pulling it in one way or another. We don't really want to be like dogs with squirrels, except we really kind of are. So that's why we focus on these things such as Gevura, of this definition, defining, discipline, so that we have some boundaries. So whatever little piece I'm working on for the day, that's what I go to sleep with at night. And it will also help you relax if you do this breathing exercise as you're falling asleep, which is breathe in the aspiration, breathe out the expectation. Breathe in the inspiration, breathe out the expectation. Myself, other people, you will fall asleep much more quickly, and you will have a restful sleep, and then you will really have the energy to do the spiritual work that you want to do the next day. So that is one way how the Sfirat HaOmer, the spiritual impact of going through that process. The other is that you can only count one day at a time. You cannot be a type A personality and say, I'm just going to get all the days done ahead of time and then I'm going to be done. You only get to do one day at a time. But we also have to do the day that we have, because you can't say, oh, I really didn't do day 1 and 2 and 3, so I'm going to go back and do those. Like, missed it. So it is to keep us present to the opportunities that we actually have in front of us at the moment. And I only need to do today's work today, which takes away the worry and the regret. Regrets about what I didn't do yesterday, and worry about what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. I'm just doing today. I don't have to worry about I don't even have to worry about day 14 today, because I'm in day 13. This is very liberating, especially for those of us who tend to live in the future and be constantly thinking about what's coming up and what we need to do, and have it overwhelm us or worry us. Now, obviously, there are things in our life that have to be planned, and planning is different than worrying and obsessing. Sfirat HaOmer keeps us very focused on what is in front of me right now. So now we know, because of everybody's use of cell phones, that we cannot even keep our eyes off our phone for 2 seconds if we have the opportunity. We are always looking for the next information of something else. Oh, I just got a text. I heard my whatever. I got an email. I got a WhatsApp. we're beeping and buzzing. It's like, just stay where we are. Just stay where we are. This is really hard. And for our generation is hard enough, and the next generation that's even harder. They are glued to their devices, and being present to what's going on around them is really hard. It's really, really hard. So helping ourselves be present, to say, like, I'm on day 13, and the rest of it, I'm not thinking about where I'm going or where I've been as far as my spiritual growth. It's like, what are my opportunities today? Why is that? So there's a very fascinating text that is in Kohelet, in Ecclesiastes, and it's chapter 10, verse 2. And it says that a wise-hearted person is focused to the right, and a fool is focused to the left. It's like, what does that mean? Okay, so the challenges of spiritual growth, I'm just going to call it all spiritual growth, whatever it is that we can either become depressed and overwhelmed, or with what's ahead of us and what we have not yet accomplished, or we can be complacent about where we're at and not think we need to do anything. So a wise person says, what's more important? What keeps us in the right frame of mind? Says the right frame of mind is, for a wise-hearted person, is more oriented to the right. Now, I always thought right meant like for the side of chesed, because right is the side of chesed. So that's not what it means. It says in Hebrew, we all know, how do you write in Hebrew? You write from right to left. So the words to the right of your pen are the ones you have already written, your accomplishments. The space to the left is what's yet to be. The key is to know how your mind works, but the Ecclesiastes is saying it is a wise-hearted person stays focused on what is to the right, what they have already accomplished. Why is that? Because since the potential for our growth is infinite, we could give up. We could just say, what's the point? There's so much ahead of me. I can't do it. I'll never get there. I measure myself against this other person. I'm never getting there. Whatever we might do, we will become immobilized by what's ahead of us. What we've accomplished is so critical for us to be able to be very happy, not complacent, happy about what we have accomplished. So if you take a look at one of my favorite things in the Jewish world is making a siyum. Okay, how many of you know what a siyum is or have participated in a siyum? Siyum is like what we celebrate when we complete learning. It can be the siyum for the Talmud. It can be, we had siyums at the end of classes. A siyum means you completed something. It also means, just so you know, if you go to the restaurant and the waiter or waitress will say, siyamta, or siyamt, did you finish? Did you finish your meal? So it's always very funny because I always heard the word siyum in a religious context, but it's also in the restaurant. Like, did you finish? What have you completed? This is supposed to motivate us and give us energy for what's coming next. Same thing for many of us, I'm sure, have been in the synagogue. When we complete a book of Torah, the Torah reading, we say, chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Strength, strength, let us be strengthened. By what? By what we've accomplished. It's not like, okay, so we're done. It's like, no, that becomes the fuel to fuel us forward. Now, since I'm looking at the people who are here on our class today, we have been in this world for several decades at least, if not more. That means we have accomplished a lot. You're here. Your life wisdom, your experiences, what you have gained, what you have learned about life and living is huge. It's one of the reasons why in the Torah it says that a person is supposed to stand up for an elderly person. Now, I know we don't like to really think that we're elderly, but we are. We're getting there. Some of us not as elderly yet, but we're getting there. It's like, why do you have to stand up for an elderly person? So like on the buses in Israel, they actually have the quote from the Torah of rise up before someone who is elderly. Okay, because of their life experiences. It's not because they're going to fall over on the bus, which they might also do when the bus lurches around a corner. That is a reason, but that's not the reason. And it certainly wasn't the reason in the Torah. It is because of the person's life experiences, the respect and honor that they are entitled to just for having made it to this stage. It says that's what we have accomplished. We're supposed to continue harvesting and reaping the benefits of the wisdom we've gained from the journey we have made, that we started. One of my grandchildren did ask me if I was in Egypt and was freed with the Jewish people. I said no, that I wasn't. But I said, but my great grandmother was. So this is my granddaughter, Shifi, who's 7. She says, do you have a picture of her? And I was like, no, I do not. I said, no, I don't. I said, but you know how in our family kind of everybody looks a little bit related? I'm sure she looked very much like you and me. So she was like, really? I said, I think so. So it's like, this is very funny. So we have life experience. So while we were not physically in Egypt, we have been through a lot of life. And that wisdom is like, look to your right, look to the side of the days gone by and how we have learned from them to propel us forward. But it's not supposed to be like how there's some people here in Florida who are living their life of like, been there, done that, and now I'm just going to play games that involve balls and sticks. It's like, that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about being motivated by that life. It's considered, there was a rabbi who came, I don't remember who it was, who said, it is usur, it is forbidden to become old. Says, what does that mean? It doesn't mean accumulating years. It means to become old in the sense of worn out and for schleppedick. You cannot be like schlepping through life, even with aches and pains. Now, we're not here to judge other people's aches and pains. That's each person's. And I'm the last one to talk. I can't even function if I have a paper cut. So but we're not talking about that. We're saying we are supposed to continue on with a lively, motivated approach with aspirations for continued growth and development. That's why we're in this world, that we are never done with that. So that brings us to the next part, which is there is no age limit on counting Sfirat HaOmer. It's not like, oh, you count until you reach the age of 65 and then you retire from Sfirat HaOmer because you're done. A person counts Sfirat HaOmer with their last breath that they're able to, which means that the potential for growth is ongoing, no matter what our circumstances, our age, or where we're at. There is also not an exemption for people who are, quote, very spiritual and very accomplished. There's not like, oh, well, they are so advanced in their greatness as human beings, they don't need to count Sfirat HaOmer. It's like, yes, they do. Nor is there on the other end someone who is so far gone who say like, why are you even bothering? You have so much to go. There's no hope for you. What do you think 49 days are going to do for you? There's no on the other side either that somebody is exempt because they don't even measure up. So in all cases, whether it is years in this world, how advanced we are or how unadvanced we are, everyone is obligated to count for themselves. And somebody else's advancement, I can't ride on their coattails. I can't say, some people, this always was fascinating to me. Many people belong to a synagogue for the rabbi who is the rabbi of the synagogue who represents the thing that they identify with Jewishly. It's like, your rabbi cannot count Sfirat HaOmer for you. Your rabbi cannot be Jewish for you. It's like, where are we as individuals? That's what we're focusing on, is each person for themselves. So this would be Hillel's statement, in Einani Limili, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? Nobody else is doing the work except for each of us as individuals. No matter how great their sermon is, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't go, it's not like osmosis, like what they said went into me. I can't say, oh, I heard like the greatest sermon. It was wonderful. It was so inspiring. They're like, great. And now what? What did it do to motivate each of us to do something different or to become something not different, to expand and grow? And how did that help our aspirations? That's the most it can do for us. So during Sfirat HaOmer, it's very self-focused. This may sound like it's selfish, but this is selfishness in a good way, in a very, very good way. Okay, so now we have that the wise-hearted person is inclined to the right and a fool is inclined to the left, because they will become overwhelmed by what's in front of them and they will not end up doing anything because they'll become discouraged. So what are we supposed to do with this here? It says it's interesting that the holiday that we're going to celebrate for the giving of Torah is called Shavuot, which means weeks. Kind of funny because the holiday itself in Israel is 1 day and outside the land of Israel is 2 days. So you would think it would just be called Yom Torah or something. It'd be like the day of giving the Torah, but it's called Shavuot because it is the 7-week period of counting that creates the holiday. One can't get there without going through the Shavuot, without going through the weeks. So it is the holiday that is named by the preparation that is done in order to get there. It's a very complicated roundabout way of saying you can't get there from here unless you get there. So going through the process is how we get to Shavuot. We will get to Shavuot by going through the count of the 7 weeks. So when we talk about how we're supposed to think about aspirations versus expectations, or how we're supposed to look at what we have achieved, one of the things that we're supposed to touch on, or that we're supposed to focus on, and we alluded to it before, was, let's say, about getting sleep. That getting sleep is a spiritual necessity. So yes, Helene.
So I have I don't know, maybe a silly question, but in the beginning, you started talking about the 50 days, from leaving Egypt to Shavuot. And it's really 49 of the Omer. So where's that discrepancy?
Good question. So we count 49 days and God gives us the 50th day as a bonus. Okay, so Shavuot is on the 50th day. We don't count that. Someone gave a great example and said it's like a building that has 50 stories, but it only has an elevator to the 49th floor. It's like, well, how are you supposed to get to the 50th floor? It's like, you get yourself to 49 and God will beam you up to the 50th.
Get to the 50.
Yeah. So the 50th is a gift to us, and that gets us to that day.
Okay.
So great question, because you're right. It's 49 and not 50. Okay, very good. Okay, so here's another example for somebody. It says, we can even overdo a good thing. It says, what about somebody who loves to do acts of chesed, acts of kindness, but they don't have the proper boundary on it? And so they are doing acts of kindness morning, noon, and night, ignoring their health, ignoring other obligations, other things, and completely wearing themselves out. It says, this is also the Yetzer Hara. It says, this is also the Satan, the impediment that is trying to say, like, okay, I'll let her wear herself out with doing these acts of kindness and everything else, because then I'm going to like get her flat on her back because she won't be able to function at all. So that everything, even something that we would name as being good and beneficial, can be overdone. So this is where we get again to the week of Gevurah that we're in, about definition. Now, this is also something that's very individualized. It depends on the person and what their threshold is and what their personal inclinations are, but that everybody has to work on. In fact, if we have something, I have to say, when we were in Jerusalem, I could have spent all day, every day in classes. And someone said, oh, you should come back and do this class. You should come back and do this class. I said, my husband is home by himself. So there were many more classes for women than for men, which was really, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure there are classes for men, but a lot of them required more advanced skills. But there was plenty for women. I could have spent every day in classes and I would be gone all day. And then I could be spiritually inspired and elevated and all this stuff. To what end? That my husband's at home waiting for me? It's like, that's not how it works. So it says, even a good thing, you can have too much of a good thing. You can have the wrong amount of a good thing. It all needs to be measured. It all needs to be measured. Etta.
I just wonder, what's the word for balance in Hebrew?
For like balance or equilibrium? I have to ask Gabi here if something is in balance. That's a very good question. You know what? Hold on one second. I'm not sure if she'll hear me. So let me just look it up right here. Balance in Hebrew. Very good question. Izun.
Izun is good. Shibui Mishkal is more like when I go on a little thingy, walking like in the
Like to
circle.
balance beam.
But Izun is good. Yeah. Liot me'uzan. Me'oznaim is when you want justice, you have a me'oznaim with a thing on top, like in the justice.
It's called Moznaim. Thank you. That's interesting. Is that going to be related to the word ozen for ears?
Interesting. I never thought about it. And I pray always, I bless the kids on Shabbat with million things, and Izun is one of them. So yeah,
That's
nice.
real interesting. So is that the same spelling as ozen? So that's such a great question. So think about that. Think about that of Izun and ozen of your ears. And first of all, your ears are on either side. You have two of them, and on either side of your head, and keeping you balanced. And if somebody has an inner ear difficulty and has vertigo and cannot keep their balance and like falls over. So that is fabulous to know, that is that we're looking for this balance. And balance, just like a person who's on a tightrope. Thank you so much, Gabi. Someone who's on a tightrope, if they're walking, you don't just assume one position and like, okay, this is balanced. Balancing is when we say something's a balancing act, it means that it requires subtle, constant adjustment in order to stay balanced. And that's what we see also with all of these different sfirot. So you can have discipline and definition, but that doesn't mean balance, because it's balanced with all the other qualities too. So it's like in our bodies. You know, when we went to the doctors and we got our readout on all of the different things from our blood tests, like 50 different tests, it was like, this is this, but that's okay, because when it's balanced out with the HDL and the LDL, and this is good, and your iron is this, but your that is that. And I didn't even know what they're talking about, but the whole thing, even your car, like everything has to be balanced. And it's a constant process. So we could say really that the Sfirat HaOmer process is about looking at this balance. And I think it's just interesting now, from just Gabi, from what you said, and Etta, your question is so beautiful, is that now we have references to our mouth and our nose, of breathing in and breathing out, as far as the idea of having aspiration, and breathing in aspiration, breathing out expectation, and then maintaining balance. And we know that even balance is a personal thing. You know, when I have vertigo, no one else has vertigo. I'm the one who has vertigo. It's, to me, the room looks like it's spinning. It's not spinning for anybody else. So finding what this balance is a very personal question. It's going to depend on what time of life we're in. It's going to depend on the day. It's going to depend even by the hour, by the moment. Because if I'm tired, if I'm hungry, if I'm any of these things that get me out of balance, I'm not going to be able to cope with other things that are coming in front of me. So I need to take that into consideration. So this is really looking at, what is my internal makeup? What do I aspire for myself? How can I maintain a balance? Where am I a little out of balance? And even as we said, even with something good, I'm going to classes, I'm doing acts of chesed, I'm visiting every poor sick person in the world. It's like, maybe I need to stay home and, fold the laundry so that my kids can find their socks, or, there's all sorts of things that go into the equation. We're all sophisticated and experienced enough to know that life is complex. It's complicated, and there's so many different facets going on all at the same time. And we need to take some time, and this is a 49-day gift, to take the time to explore where we're at with each one of each piece. Where are we with each of these? And to do a point-by-point readout. I have to say, when you go to the doctor could have said, I look at you, you look fine, you look healthy. It's like, well, let's not be so sure. I think we'll take some blood and do a more careful analysis. And then we're going to look at each thing and not just say, yeah, I'm sure you're fine. So we want to do the same thing when we are talking about where we are in our spiritual makeup and our personality, character development. It's like we want to do a point-by-point evaluation that should inspire us because we have aspirations. Speaking of aspirations, one of the other things I thought was so interesting that Rav Lev pointed out was as he spoke about looking at people around us, people in our lives who model for us whatever greatness they model. And they don't have to be perfect people. We do not need people to be perfect in order for us to learn from them. As it says in that we learn in Pirkei Avot, who is wise, a person who learns from everybody, that everybody has something, a special quality that we can really look up to and be inspired by. And we're supposed to look for those. Remember, we know that we're in a state of semi-mourning now because Rabbi Akiva's students, the 12,000 pairs of students, 24,000 students died. And it said because they did not respect each other enough. And it wasn't that they were having a barroom brawl. It's like they did not have enough recognition for what made each one of them unique, of like what was their gift. They didn't appreciate it. And to be on the lookout as we're looking through ourselves and we have on our fine-tuning eyes. So one of the dangers is while I'm looking carefully at myself, I might start looking too carefully at other people and pointing out their flaws. But I'm supposed to use that same fine-tuned vision to look at other people to find their point of greatness. What is it that I can emulate and be inspired by from this other person? And it might be, I have to say, when we went to the hospital to visit our daughter, the nurse is there. I'm like, wow, how do they do this work? I mean, it's all this physical work and taking care of people who are not well or who are bleeding or having bodily whatever coming from them that they're taking care of. It's like, thank you for doing this kind of work. Everybody is doing something or even just carrying on in their life in some way that we can appreciate and be mindful of. So when we have on our microscopic glasses, looking at ourselves and looking at this evaluation, the tendency is to use it then to look at other people, but that's fine as long as we know what we're looking for. And what we're looking for is I'm looking for your point of greatness so that I can be inspired by it. With that's my question, that will help me see it more readily. At the same time, we're also supposed to be inspired by people who are truly great, truly great. So it's very interesting. During Pesach, we went to the Ma'arat HaMachpelah, the cave of Machpelah, which is where Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Leah are buried. So Rav Lev was saying that when he and his wife were in Israel the very first time, that they went to the graves of all these great people, Rabbi Akiva, the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the Maimonides, like all of these people. It's just like, why are we going to graves? Like somehow that seems like a little, I don't know, morbid. And he said it's very interesting and very important that we realize that the people who we look up to as being so great are human beings. How do we know they're human? Because they lived and they died and they're buried here. It is easy to think like, oh, well, those people, they're like angels. They're like so spiritual, like they're kind of out of my league. It's like, no, they're not. No, they're not, because they're buried here. They lived a life and here they are. We're living a life and here we are. So we may not achieve everything that they achieved, but the ability to achieve has been gifted to each and every one of us. So to go and say, like, I'm standing here, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, he passed away at the age of 40. Look what he accomplished. So it doesn't mean I'm supposed to be depressed that I didn't accomplish what he accomplished, but it does mean that I need to know that he was a person who did accomplish and that I'm a person who can accomplish. So this is supposed to be an inspiration to me. And same thing even with Sarah, Rebecca, and Leah, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They were people who were inspiring and who were human. And that is my inspiration as well. So whether it's the people who are living truly in our midst, everyday people, the checker at the store, the person who, I don't know, whoever you come into contact with, everybody is somebody who can be inspiring to us in our process, because we want to be wise. So we know that the wise-hearted person looks to the right, is inspired by their own personal accomplishments, and a wise-hearted person is also inspired by the lives of other people and learns from everyone, whether they are currently alive or whether they are no longer alive. And with that, we can put ourselves, after this 49-day intensive, beautiful, personal, introspective experience, we can put ourselves in a place where the amount of spiritual connection that we can anticipate receiving and being part of when we get to the holiday of Shavuot will be totally in a different league than what we received last year. So if you're thinking to yourself, I haven't actually been counting Sfirat HaOmer for these past 13 days, no worries, you can start counting now. So we don't say the blessing if one hasn't been counting, we don't say the blessing, but you can count. And you can go anywhere. You can go in a Siddur, in a prayer book. You can go online. You announce what the time is in days and in weeks. And we have this feeling of accomplishment. We say the day, again, just to remind ourselves, we say the day at the very, very beginning of the day, while it's still night the night before. We announced that it was 13 last night. And we say how many weeks, the days that we have accomplished and the weeks that we have accomplished, and that we are making progress. One of the things, they talk about this in management. It's like, what is the chief complaint of people? I don't know if things are different now that people are working from home. One of the chief complaints of people when they were working in an office or someplace was that their achievements were not recognized. It was not about pay. It was about the personal fulfillment that comes from having our efforts recognized. We need to say, I achieved something. I made a step. And a small step is the only step we need to make. And we should never feel like that step was like hardly even worth talking about. In God's eyes, every step we make, every day, every moment that is one micro centimeter closer to where we aspire to be is a huge accomplishment. It's a huge accomplishment. So we need to move forward with that and know that each day is presenting us with an opportunity that is amazing and is tailor-made for us. The other thing we will find is that whatever it is, when we think like, well, what is it that I should be working on? One question we can say is, well, what's going on in your life? What are the challenges? Because like, should I be working on patience? I'm like, I don't know. Are there people in your life who you find yourself being impatient with? Is it generosity? I don't know. Are there situations where you're finding it's difficult to be generous? This is all of these things that we can ask ourselves the question. The answer is not in the back of the book. The answer is in front of our face. So whatever it is that is happening in our lives, that is our spiritual agenda. It's not something other. We don't need to go on a retreat. No one that I know of has a 49-day retreat for Sfirat HaOmer. They may go on a Passover program and have all their meals catered to the nth degree with wonderful Pesach food that doesn't taste Pesach. That's amazing. But nobody stays away for 49 days. Everyone goes back to their regularly scheduled programming. And that's where the spiritual growth happens, is in everyday life, doing ordinary things with the regular people who are part of your experience. And that's the place where the magic has the potential to happen. So with that, I want to thank you for helping me with mine and just being able to talk this through with you and to share this journey, and look forward to seeing you next week. I'm not sure where I'll be, but wherever Hashem puts me. But so look for an email, and I'll look forward and hopefully being able to see you.
Oh, Yasher Koach. What happened to your condo? It's being renovated?
Yes, it's not ready. So we can't go there yet. So we got the approval from the county for the work, but not from the condominium association. So
it was supposed to be ready?
supposed to be according to my expectation? Yes. According to the reality of what's in front of us? No.
Yeah,
So
that's what's going.
Luckily, we have our daughter, and I'm sitting in her office, and they are very generous, and we're here.
Yeah, so you have a guest room there. They have an extra guest.
No, they don't. They have our grandson's floor with a blow-up mattress.
Okay.
But
You're
he's
camping.
luckily he's 6 years old, and he thinks having his grandparents spend the night on his floor is like the best thing ever.
So you're on the floor? Wow.
Well, now we're in a hotel, but we're checking out, I think, tomorrow. So I don't know. We're up in the air. I mean, you guys know me. Being up in the air is not usually where I am. I'm usually like, I know what I'm doing, where I'm going, and what's happening. So we're up in the air. I'm like, I don't know.
That's a test.
Whatever.
Yeah. Your back is okay sleeping on the floor?
Oh yeah, I'm fine. But now we're in a hotel, so I'm fine. We're sleeping on a bed in a hotel.
Ellyn,
That's
I'm
good.
sorry I came in late, but did you mention anything about Audrey's baby?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, she had a little boy, and God willing, will have his Brit Milah on Friday morning, which is Rosh Chodesh Iyar.
And you
So-
let us know the name?
Mazel tov.
So we're very excited, and he's very cute, and his older brother and sister are very loving and attentive.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And you
How
let
old
us
is her daughter? How old is your granddaughter?
Laura is 9.5,
Oh my
and
goodness.
Jordan will be 6 a month from today. So, they're pretty grown up, and,
Right.
Laura gave him a bottle this morning.
Right.
And she was telling me, she said, now, Omi, sometimes he just kind of moves his arms around, but it's okay. I'm like,
Wow.
He's so lucky to have a little brother, to have 2 little brothers.
yes, she's a very good big sister. So she's been waiting for a baby for a long time. So very happy
That's wonderful.
to have one to herself.
I'm
Yeah.
so happy everything went well. Let us know the name.
Baruch
And yeah,
Hashem.
the issue of sleep, I'll join you. Like maybe we could be accountable to each other, and maybe we go to
Like,
sleep earlier.
Go to sleep. There was a rabbi of a very famous yeshiva who he made the lights. He said it so the lights went out. He turned off the power in the yeshiva so that the boys would go to sleep. And it was different because there was another yeshiva where people prided themselves on staying up late and being exhausted and
Terrible.
I'll do anything to learn Torah. And he's like, great, you're a teenager and you need your sleep because you're still growing, and you are not doing God or anybody any good by staying up too late. You're
That's
going to
very
sleep.
true.
And in those days, if you cut the power, there wasn't any oh, well, I'll just use the flashlight from my phone. So it was like, no, you're going to sleep. You need to stop. So knowing when to stop even good things is the challenge of the good person. As we've talked about before, the Satan is not going to make you go do something horrible. You are not going to be robbing a bank. You're not, God forbid, you're not killing anybody. You're not even being mean to anybody. So the only thing that the Yetzer Hara can do for good people is to get them to do less of the good and to wear them out, burn them out, and exhaust them. And that's the challenge. And so it's just like, don't do it. You're falling for the trap and thinking oh, I'm going to just stay up and keep doing this. I have more people need me. It's like, that's actually, that's a trap. It's a trap. It's a trap for the good people. It's a trap for the good people. And you could say, well, I know somebody and they are 23 hours a day. They are helping other people. It's like, okay, that's their challenge. And that doesn't need to be you. So we need to find all of these things of the word balance. And what was it, Gabi? The word for balance again was
Izun.
izun.
Izun. Aleph, Yud, Zayin,
Aleph,
Vav, Nun Sofit,
Okay.
and Liot Meuzan, to be balanced. Yeah, my nutritionist says absolutely 10 p.m. and never after 11. 10 to 6. 10 to 2 is physical repair. 2 to 6 is psychological repair. And
Yeah.
the physical is like a washing machine that takes the toxins out. So if I go to sleep at 12, what I do a lot, then I lost half of the detoxing.
That's right. We are doing ourselves in. And, I one time went to a conference that Steve was at, and the person came and spoke about sleep. And sleep deprivation is worse than being intoxicated. It's like I'm talking to myself right now. We are messing up our bodies. Yes, we are messing up our bodies and our
Maybe
minds are in good health and our relationships because we cannot function. And so
Right.
it makes us, you know, at
Let's
the
work
best,
together.
we don't have the energy, we don't have the stamina. And honestly, ladies, everybody wants to have beauty secrets. And you ask your dermatologist what will make you look more youthful. Just get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, not
And-
have these swollen eyes.
Yeah, it's
And
like,
maybe
you
we
know,
can-
you want to
maybe
have
we
not
can,
puffy eyes and, you know, with a sagging face and sloped shoulders. It's like, get some sleep. So, I mean,
maybe we can help each other. That would be amazing if
go
it's
to
not
sleep.
just
Just
me.
send me an email saying, Ellen, go to sleep. I'm like, thank you, just a minute. But I'm really working on it. So,
Yeah, we're not
Anyway.
in the same. I'll join you because it's
Okay.
number one. But
all right. So
um,
ladies, each of you should be blessed with success in your aspirations, to breathe in the aspiration, to breathe out the expectation of yourself and other people, to work slowly on a goal. And even the infinite creator who created you and me knows that we are not only works in progress, we are slow works in progress. And that it will take our entire life to reach our full potential. We don't want to say that we reached our full potential and now we're done, because that is not the goal either. The goal is to be a constant work in progress. And for that matter, so is everyone else. So when we have our complaints about how other people are also not where we expect them to be, to realize that everyone else in the world is also a work in progress and a slow work at that. So may we be blessed with patience and understanding and compassion for ourselves and for others as we go through this journey in our lives.
So
Have
beautiful.
a wonderful rest of
Toda
your
rabba.
week.
Yasher
Good
koach.
Shabbos and an early Chodesh Tov. The month of ER should be blessed for you, coming in on Friday. And I will look forward to seeing you next week, but I will let you know where I am and hopefully it'll be possible.
Well, thank you so much. It was
Thank you,
unbelievable.
Ellen.
Mazal tov. Big
Mazal
Thank
mazal.
you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yasher koach. It was fantastic. Bye. Take
Bye.
care,
Thank you for that
everyone.
information about. Good Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos, everybody.
Yeah.